Are animals being left behind by law enforcement? Hello, I am Dr. Mark, animal advocate, rescuer, published author of many animal books, investigative journalist, and former deputy sheriff. I want you to join me as I dive into the heart of this issue and challenge myself to find out if animals are really being left behind by law enforcement. When we think of law enforcement, we often think of their bravery and ability to save human lives in times of crisis. But have you ever stopped to think about what happens to the animals caught in the middle of these emergency situations? Unfortunately, it's an often overlooked reality that animals are frequently abandoned or neglected by law enforcement during times of crisis. And today we're going to explore this critical topic and ask the question, are animals being left behind by law enforcement? Law enforcement agencies face a multitude of challenges when it comes to animal welfare during emergencies. One of the biggest hurdles is resource limitations. In the midst of a crisis, law enforcement personnel are often stretched thin, and animal welfare may not be their top priority. Additionally, there may not be the necessary resources such as transportation, food, and veterinary care to properly care for the animals in need. This can lead to heartbreaking decisions being made on the fly, such as leaving animals behind in order to prioritize human safety. Another challenge law enforcement faces is policy gaps. Many jurisdictions lack clear protocols for handling animal welfare during emergencies, leaving it up to individual officers to make judgment calls. This lack of clear guidance can lead to inconsistent responses and ultimately, animals being left behind. Furthermore, law enforcement agencies may not have the training or expertise to handle certain types of animals, such as livestock or exotic pets. This lack of knowledge can put both the animals and the officers at risk. And finally, there's the emotional toll that dealing with animals in crisis can take on law enforcement personnel. It's a heavy burden to carry and one that can't be overlooked. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, for example, thousands of animals were left stranded and abandoned, leading to widespread suffering and death. Volunteers from animal rescue organizations worked tirelessly to rescue and provide care for these animals, but it was a daunting task. More recently, during the wildfires that swept through California, many animals were left behind as their owners were forced to evacuate. In both of these cases, law enforcement agencies were faced with the impossible task of prioritizing human safety while also trying to care for the animals in need. We spoke with representatives from animal rescue organizations and law enforcement agencies to get their perspectives on what went wrong and what can be done differently in the future. According to one animal rescue volunteer, it was devastating to see the number of animals that were left behind. We did our best to rescue as many as we could, but it was a drop in the bucket compared to the number of animals in need. A law enforcement officer echoed this sentiment, stating, "We do the best we can with the resources we have, but it's just not possible to save every animal. It's a heartbreaking reality that we have to face every time we respond to an emergency situation." These stories highlight the need for better protocols and support for animal welfare during law enforcement operations. One powerful story that stands out in my mind is that of a family who was forced to evacuate their home during a flood. In the chaos of the moment, they were unable to take their beloved dog Max with them. They were devastated, but they had no choice. As the floodwaters rose, Max was left alone, scared, and abandoned. Thanks to the heroic efforts of a local animal rescue organization, Max was eventually rescued and reunited with his family. But for many animals, this is not the outcome. They are left to fend for themselves, often with devastating consequences. This is exactly why we need to shine a light on this issue and work towards creating a better system for animal welfare during emergencies. So, what can we do to ensure that animals are not left behind in emergency situations? The first step is acknowledging the problem and working to create better protocols and support systems for animal welfare during law enforcement operations. It's time for us to recognize the importance of animal lives and take action to protect them. What do you think? Have you ever experienced a situation where animals were left behind during an emergency? Do you think law enforcement agencies should prioritize animal welfare during these situations? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're passionate about animal welfare, be sure to check out our next video where we'll be discussing another critical issue affecting animals today.